You know what election was stolen? And then I'll tell you the reaction that happened instead when it happened in the left wing. 2000, brazenly stolen from Al Gore. So let me explain the details and then I'll relate it back to today, okay? So Al Gore not only won the popular vote, and nobody disputes that, but after the case was over and the election was over, all the news organizations went in and did a recount of the entire state of Florida. And under every kind of way of counting, Al Gore won the state of Florida. So he got flat out robbed. He won the Electoral College as well. But the Supreme Court in that case said, no, I don't care what Florida law is. I don't care that we've been making an argument for states' rights our whole lives. That liar Scalia, that piece of crap hypocrite, was like, yeah, did I say states' rights for decades? I mean, screw states' rights. You know what I'm saying? States don't have any goddamn rights. And they ordered Florida to stop the recount. They said, we don't want to know who won because then we might find out Al Gore won. We don't want Al Gore winning. We just want to steal this goddamn election and give it to our buddy George Bush. And they outright stole it, okay? Now, having said that, Supreme Court rules, the Supreme Court rules. We move on, okay? Nobody rioted. The Democrats haven't been crying about that, like, oh, no, Al Gore should have been the president. Al Gore is actually the current president, etc. They let it go. It was a great injustice, and we noted for the history books, and I noted as an example here, but we let it go. We didn't go around going, no, Al Gore's still the president,
but in
and losing the goddamn minds that I see with the right
But in 2016, they did.
No, they didn't. See, I'm glad you're bringing that up. See, that's another super important distinction because Hillary Clinton whined about losing the election in 2,000 ways. Oh, it was the Russians. It was my dog ate my homework.
Funded the Steele dossier.
Steele dossier. The Bernie bros did it, blah, 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 because she didn't want to accept responsibility. And the establishment media didn't want to accept responsibility because they all loved Hillary Clinton. They all hated Bernie Sanders. They all hated Donald Trump. They hated anyone who wasn't the establishment. Hillary Clinton is the epicenter of the establishment. So they couldn't live with the fact that they were preposterously wrong. You know what got under their skin the most? Me. Because I told them, hey, you idiots, Hillary Clinton's going to lose.
Go to Michigan.
Right? And Bernie Sanders has a 12-point lead on Donald Trump, you morons, right? And they're like, no, I think the establishment is correct. I think America loves the establishment.
But you know what it really was is that to them, Bernie and Trump are effectively the same thing.
Of course. Actually, they fear Bernie way more than they fear Trump.
Probably.
Yeah, and the reason is because Trump's full of crap. He's only in it for himself, whereas Bernie actually would change the system. And so when they know that Bernie would change the system, they're like, anything but Bernie. Shut his ass out. Don't give him any media coverage. Don't let him do debates. Put the debates up against the Super Bowl. Do anything you can to make sure you silence Bernie. Oh, Trump, he could be allowed on TV all day long. Oh, let's have fun. Oh, what's the major proposal of Donald Trump back in 2016? Oh, a lot of shouting about the wall and immigrants, etc. But what's the only thing that Trump did? Giant tax cuts for the rich and for corporations. The establishment loved Trump up until that bill passed. I swear to God, you watch old Young Turks clips and I say, they're not going to turn on him until this giant tax cut for the rich passes.
Well, you know what really got him positive press? When he bombed Syria.
Yeah, and then he bombed Syria and they're like, yes, right? So
now he's a president.
So yeah, they turn on him later when he does anti-establishment stuff, but he's not doing anti-establishment stuff for the average voter. Yeah, he tried to play ball. He loves stoners. His super PACs took $100 million from Sheldon Adelson twice.
Yeah,
Sheldon Adelson.
John Bolton. Yeah, he brings him in.
He brings in John Bolton, who's a warmonger and a neocon. Sheldon Adelson owns casinos in Vegas, but he mainly owns casinos in Macau. You know that, like, so Trump did like half a dozen giant favors for him, but the biggest favor was. Two biggest favors were he basically dismissed corruption charges in China against him, and he allowed him to bring his money back from China. Instead of a 35%, he created a special rate of 8% for repatriating taxes from a foreign country. So a guy who, he's deceased now, but back then, a guy who had his main line of business in China had bought the U.S. president. He gave him $100 million 2 different times and totally bought him. And Donald Trump was 100% his bitch. His bitch so much that not only did he give him every single thing that he asked for, but he also made his wife, he gave her a presidential Medal of Honor. It's the highest honor America has, and he threw it in like a tchotchke. Like, oh yeah, if you act now, Sheldon, I'll also take your rando wife and give her a presidential medal, okay, of honor. And he's like, Sheldon's like, oh, I was going to go 90 million, but I'll go the whole 100, okay? And so he purchased Donald Trump. He's just as corrupt as anyone else. He's just corrupt on his own behalf. But Bernie, he's not corrupt. So that's why the establishment's like, Trump we could deal with. What's Trump's new proposal now? Cut corporate taxes from 21 to 15. He's still blowing corporations to this day. Donald Trump has wanted to be part of the club for his whole life. He's a spoiled little kid. He never knew how to run his dad's money. He lost all his money. Everybody in New York laughed at him, and that made him so bitter. So he's just in it for himself.
Who do you think we'd be better off with today, Biden or Trump? You think Biden?
Oh, definitely Biden. I'll tell you why in a sec. But just to finish the earlier thought. So for all of Hillary Clinton's whining, she never said the election that there was fraud in the voting, that the election was stolen from me through the fraud in the voting, and it's an illegitimate election, and I should be president.
Russia manipulated the votes.
Yeah, but she didn't say I should be president. She didn't, and she didn't say no. She didn't say manipulate the votes themselves. She said manipulate the media.
She said it could be stolen from you.
Yeah, but
so she didn't say me, but we know what she means when she said it.
But Tim, did she ever say, "Hey, no, Trump didn't actually win the election.
Yes.
I'm the actual president"?
Well, she said it was stolen.
She never said that. She never, ever said that. I'm the actual president? No. Whereas that dumbass Donald Trump has been pretending he won this entire time. Hillary Clinton was bitter about the loss, but she never made the claim legally or otherwise. Hey, look, Tim, it's a super easy thing. First of all, you can look it up, right? And yeah, I know the line, guys.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say the election is fraudulent. I'm the actual president. Here's
a multi-year
here's an analogy to that line.
Stolen.
So here's an analogy to that line, even though Bernie never said it, but his supporters said it. So the primary was in 2016 was quote unquote rigged against Bernie Sanders. Okay. Now, how was it rigged? Because it's very important. So it was rigged in that they did as few debates as possible. They put the debates on like when people would least watch them. They tried to take the oxygen out of the room for Bernie. And then if you remember, we broke the story at Young Turks that Donna Brazil took questions and fed them to Hillary Clinton in the debates. And then a huge part of it was they did a money laundering operation where these huge Democratic donors would give to the states, and the state parties would then funnel it into Hillary Clinton's campaign. So if you say that election, that primary election was rigged in that way, okay, that's fair, okay? But if you say the votes were actually messed with, and a lot of Bernie supporters at the time said that, and we at the Young Turks came out and said, no, guys.
Superdelegates.
You don't have any, no, superdelegates is a different conversation.
No, I know, but like, it's rigged against Bernie.
But guys, understand how the mainstream media rigs things, because they rig things against the left and the right, okay? So it's important that you understand how they do it. So in that case, what they did was the superdelegates technically actually vote at the end of the process. And oftentimes, even if they declare earlier, they switch their votes. So, for example, a lot of superdelegates said that they were going to support Hillary in 2008, but in the middle of the campaign, they switched to Obama. And none of that was technical. Only at the end do they vote, do the superdelegates vote. But what the media did instead in 2016 was they showed the superdelegate count in every tabulation right from the get-go. So they'd be like, Hillary Clinton has a 468-0 lead on Bernie Sanders. This thing's almost over. You're like, wait a minute, nobody's even voted, including the superdelegates. You're just saying that those superdelegates declared for Hillary as a way of saying this thing's already over, Hillary Clinton's already won. So they're manipulating the voters into thinking that Bernie Sanders is doing a long shot campaign that is hopeless, and he's just a piece of crap who's trying to hurt the actual Democratic nominee, when these beloved superdelegates have already weighed in, right?
Yeah.
And so it is a fundamental deception, and mainstream media does that all the time. But it is not rigging the actual votes. And so that's where we drew the line and said, you don't have evidence of any votes being switched from Bernie Sanders to Hillary Clinton.
A large portion of Democrats did believe that the Russians actually went in and flipped votes, literally.
I never saw anyone saying that on television, in print.
I'm saying that there were several polls done where they asked voters, do you
Yeah,
believe?
and if the voters were misled by Hillary's over-the-top statements, then that's a shame on Hillary Clinton. But it is, but you can see it is fundamentally different. Because I'll tell you right now, there's people in your audience who are screaming at their screens right now going, no, it was actually stolen. They rigged the votes. Smartmatic and Dominion and the mules. And I saw a Dinesh D'Souza propaganda piece, movie, that convinced me that the votes were actually stolen. No, none of it was stolen. None of it. Never. Zero. And here, I can prove it now ahead of time. So, Tim, you're being reasonable and saying, no, it was not actually stolen in the votes.
I've never said it was stolen in the votes.
Okay, good. Okay, so that is factual.
But, they lie. These NGOs run fake stories. You had this one group out of Stanford argue that I'm one of the super spreaders of election misinformation or whatever, when since Joe Biden won, I was like, guys, this is not true. Trump is not going to be reinstated. There are no Dominion weird switching. There's no German servers, but they just pump out lies in the media saying I claimed it anyway.
Yeah. So now the thing that I'll tell the right-wingers that still believe Trump's lie is, all right, guys, you have a perfect opportunity. Because when Trump goes to court in Atlanta and in the federal case, on the actual election issues, so not the national documents and not the fraud in New York, but the ones that are actually about January 6th, right? He can win those cases very easily because the core of the cases is they have to prove that Donald Trump not only lied about the election results, but knew that he was lying, okay? So, but the good news is the defense to that is, I wasn't lying. It's true. The election was stolen.
Here's the proof.
Here's the proof.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, if you're a Donald Trump supporter and you really think the election was stolen, if Donald Trump does not present that evidence when it would free him and it would liberate him and it would prove you right after all these years, then you have to be livid at Donald Trump, right?
Oh, I mean, we've been talking about this for a while too. Like there are a lot of Trump supporters who are like, haha, they made a big mistake. Now Trump's going to be able to get the evidence adjudicated because they were dismissed before, but now they have to bring it in court. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see it. If the argument is you're upset with the procedure, like Texas v. Pennsylvania, I agree. We should have that argument over procedure. But this idea that, I keep hearing this one where they say, they pulled votes out from under the table and started counting. And I was like, and if you watch the full surveillance video, you can watch them put the votes there too.
Yeah,
you can
it's just votes.
You can watch the votes come in, get placed in the box, put under the table. And at the end of the day, they then pull them out and start counting them. There is a video of a woman running the votes twice. There's a question of whether or not were the votes rejected from the machine, so she had to run them twice, or was she trying to count votes twice? And if that's the case, how is it possible to run the same vote more than once? They should be serialized or something. But those are things I think are worth having a conversation about.
But so first of all, I'm not getting into any of that nonsense about the votes. But in terms of Texas, Pennsylvania, look, guys, there's challenges that come in any election, and it's very normal. And sometimes the Supreme Court takes the challenge, sometimes they don't. And sometimes they rule in an outrageous way, as they did in Bush v. Gore. By the way, the Supreme Court has ruled in many outrageous ways. They've ruled in Citizens United that corporations are human beings and have even more rights than human beings, that they are endowed by their creator with unalienable rights. What creator? We're their goddamn creators.
Well, corporations are people, my friend.
Yeah, and that corporations have freedom of speech. No, that's called a bribe, okay? That's what it's called. And guys, if you're a right-winger super frustrated with the establishment, you're not wrong. The establishment keeps telling you you're wrong and you're crazy. You're not wrong. But there is a crazy line, right? So in terms of the establishment, they frame everything as if the status quo is great, that corporate rule is awesome, and that you should get nothing, and that the rich and powerful should get everything. And mainstream media is one giant corporate propaganda outlet, okay? And so I can show you all the ways that they've screwed over the left wing. I can show you a lot of ways they screw over the right wing, okay? So if you're frustrated about that and mainstream media figures keep yelling at you, no, you're imagining it, man. These politicians are wonderful, and those aren't bribes. Those are just people talking with one another, and you guys are all radicals. No, that's crap, and that's why nobody believes mainstream media anymore. But when you jump the shark and you come up with conspiracy theories that aren't even remotely true, guys, all you're doing is hurting your cause.
I completely agree. And then you get people who won't vote because they think it's pointless when they need to be voting. But I think here's where the big challenge comes. Because I think I said this on the show when you announced you were running. If it was between Mitt Romney and Joe Biden, I'm voting Cenk Uygur. And it's because I'm willing to believe that you're the more likely candidate to pardon Julian Assange. You're the more likely candidate not to bring us into psychotic foreign wars. And I can't speak for anything else, but I'm not voting for the war machine. And so the challenge comes, here's why I voted for Trump in 2020. I did not vote for Trump in 2016. What did we get? Afghan withdrawal timeline. Okay, well, I'll take a grain of sand over, a bushel of wheat if I can get something. Getting our troops out of Syria. Why were they in Syria in the first place? I can't believe it. Donald Trump openly admitting to America's foreign policy, boastfully saying, we're going to sell all these weapons to Saudi Arabia, make a whole bunch of money. The bombing in Yemen, all of these horrifying things. And I'm like, if I can get 1% out of Donald Trump in that he's going to focus more on whatever's going on in this country, and it means we're not blowing up kids in foreign countries, it's the best candidate I've laid before me in terms of who can actually win and do something. And then I saw a bunch of people on the left, prominent people, say, you have to vote for Joe Biden. And I'm like, but he's going to Hillary Clinton this. We're going to see war. We're going to see, look at Libya. I saw he died. It's been chaos and a disaster. We're going to see American troops dying. We're going to see conflict and chaos. And they said Trump would bring about World War III. And then we didn't get it. We got no new wars, and we actually got withdrawal timelines. And I'm not saying he did great. I'm not saying he did perfect, but he did better than anyone I'd seen in my lifetime. Yeah. Abraham Accords I thought were fantastic. He crossed the DMZ into North Korea with no security detail. And I'm just like, holy wow. I'll take it, please. Just whatever Biden has to offer. It's going to be crony BS. It's going to be warmongering. It's going to be neoliberal, neoconservative war. Just give me whatever I can get. And now I see a lot of these leftists who were like, nope, we have to vote for Joe Biden. It's the only path forward. And I was like, oh, spare me, dude. I will take a bowl with no direction, smashing everything over the neolibs, over the Democratic Party.
Yeah. So let me tell you why you're right about my positions, and obviously why I would be better, and I'm running against them. But then I'm going to tell you someone who could easily win that isn't me.
Is it Bernie?
Okay, and it's no, it's a Republican. Okay. So first off, on my positions, would I pardon Julian Assange? Of course. That's not even a close question. He should have never been hounded in the first place. So
Trump's the reason Julian's in a worse position.
Yeah. And so that's exactly right. Trump is so full of crap. It bothers me so much that people who are legitimately angry about what mainstream media has done, what corporate politicians have done, are gravitating over towards another con man. Okay. So Donald Trump, why on God's green earth wouldn't you pardon Julian Assange? Not only is Julian Assange never did anything wrong, he's as much of a whistleblower as anyone has ever been.
Arguably helped Trump.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he arguably helped Trump, okay? And in fact, I thought he got too political, and I started to get mad at Julian Assange. But that never changed my opinion that he should be freed immediately.
But real quick, I'll tell you why. And this is speculative based on meetings that had happened, but the general idea is Donald Trump had his people make Julian the offer. You give us your sources on this information and you're free to go. And Julian said, never. And they said, if we don't give it to us, we'll take it by force. Mm-hmm. And that's what's resulted in his arrest and extradition attempts.
And Tim, even if that story is true and it's your speculation, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. But even if that story is true, doesn't make it any better. It makes it worse.
I know. I agree. Yeah. He should have been pardoned outright.
Yeah.
I mean, he should never have been charged.
So I would bring back Snowden immediately. Like Snowden and Assange are American heroes. They're whistleblowers, although Assange is not American.
Well, I agree with Snowden. Come back, no charges. But there is a distinction between Snowden and Assange. Assange is a journalist.
Yeah, we can get into that, but it's not important. The point is that they revealed information about American wrongdoing, the government's wrongdoing, and that is a classic whistleblower. And they tried different paths to get it out otherwise. And Assange is a journalist, period. Right? So, okay, so that one's easy. Getting us into wars, of all the candidates, there's no question that I'm the one that is most likely to avoid war. Because I don't want any piece of it. After defense contractors, all they do is rob us. They get our sons and daughters killed. They kill tons of innocent civilians. And it's not about the killing. It's about the robbery.